Hello, welcome to the Course of Love review of Chapter 31. It's called The Nature of Mind, but I'm going to give you a little heads up here and a warning. Some really revolutionary and challenging concepts in this chapter that have to do with relationships, which can be some of our most challenging and complex issues. So I will try to stick to the ideas that are presented while giving as much clarity as I'm able. So we start with the idea that there is only one mind and one will. This confirms your interdependence and wholeness. So that might be a little bit hard to imagine because you have thoughts that you know aren't the same thoughts that are in somebody else's head, and you have different ideas and different concepts. We know we're not identical. So how is it possible that there's only one mind and one will? It's because of how we think of the idea of mind and how we think of ourselves. So let's look at this a little closer. I put the question here, what about my individual thoughts? Where do they come from? And we find the answer in verse 2. Thoughts related to your personal self and the laws of the body, such as those of survival, are not the thoughts of the true self. In fact, there are a lot of teachers and a lot of work that's being done that says, you can't really believe your thoughts. Your thoughts are really a result of your conditioning, which has been there for you since birth. And they're just kind of a running track of nonsense that is part of the program that was created for you. So this is talking about another level of mind than we are accustomed to looking at it. It delineates between the mind and the brain, the mind being that universal place where we are all joined. We all come from that same essence, that same mind, and that same will. And in that place, we are completely interdependent and whole there. So the conclusion then is we are inseparable. In other words, I can't separate from you. I can't separate from anything. But we're not the same because we've taken on this role of playing an individualized character within this story, which makes our stories different and our programming different. So we've got kind of a unique situation going on here. And when you accept it, it's really delightful. But when that idea of oneness creates fear in you, like, wait a minute, where we fear oneness because we don't want to be the same. We want to be individuals. Yet we can experience through different bodies in different countries, be in different situations, and still be essentially the same. In other words, our nature, our true underlying nature is the same, but we are expressing it differently. Remember that the mind and your individual brain are not the same thing. Here's where we come to differentiate it. The mind is your being. We know that your body's not your being, your brain isn't your being. The mind is the being, that essential consciousness from which we all come. It's the control center for all experience. And now it tells us that the purpose of the mind, that central consciousness, that place where we are joined, is extension, which is what we're doing here. In verse 11, the upside down perception that causes you to protect your private thoughts and see them as the seat of yourself calls for the exact opposite of extension. Okay, let's just stop there and look at that much. So because we think I'm an individual, I'm over here all by myself, I'm going to keep my thoughts private. I'm going to hold them in. Holding them in and keeping them myself is the opposite of extension. Now going on with that verse. Rather than discriminating between higher and lower thoughts, you have aggrandized all your thoughts and given them an identity we have called the ego. Without dislodging your belief in your ego as yourself, you will never realize your true identity. So what has happened is all the conditioning things that have happened to us so far in our lifetimes, including the collective conditioning and society's conditioning, all of those have created a false identity that we call the ego. And until we are ready to see the truth, we think that's who we are. We identify with that as being who I am. So taking all of the thoughts that come across our mind as being ourselves and as being of equal, we have actually believed our thoughts and thought them to be true. And that's where part of the breakdown happens. So he tells us that what matters is where you place your devotion. What do you really care about? What's really important to you? Remembering who you are, or aggrandizing the ego, making the individual character you're playing to be better, more successful, happier? Where's your devotion? Your devotion can't be split or it will fail. But part of the fear that might come up for you might be, well, yeah, I really want to be awake. I really want to know who I actually am, but I don't want to be part of the big blah, the big om, and not have any sense of self at all. That's a common fear that comes up in this kind of work. And he's reassuring us that you're not separate, but you're not exactly the same. Your identity, your character is still going to be here, still going to be living, still going through life. So relax and see what you're devoted to. Are you ready to know the truth about yourself? Are you ready to really have a relationship with yourself, is what this is saying. Are you ready to turn your focus from the outside toward the inside and see what's really true here? What's really happening here? Instead of operating on automatic pilot, which is what we've been doing. Verse 14, in order to be yourself, the capital S self, you have to share yourself. What you keep, you lose. Well, this is a real challenge. We're going to go into it even a little bit deeper here. So one of the ways that you can find out the truth of who you really are is by sharing that. And in verse 15, all that you would keep private and unshared is in essence who you think you are. So think about, what do I want to keep private? Things in my past that I'm not too proud of, my disgusting habits, my thoughts that are less than skillful. Whatever your list is, understand that those things that you want to keep private, that's who you think you are. That's part of your ego. The fact that you want to keep them to yourself. Now, you don't want to share your negative thoughts. That's the first thing. I don't deserve to be loved. I can't do anything right. I'm a bad person. Whatever your negative thoughts are. And if you're living in a world of a conditioned self, everybody has them. We don't want to share those because we don't want other people to think those things about us. Or your positive thoughts. We don't want to share those either. I'm pretty smart. I could do that better than they're doing it. I'm prettier than she is. Whatever the thoughts are. We don't want to share those because we realize we're just trying to pump our own ego, and we don't want others to think that we're vain. So there we are. What those thoughts that are going on, the negative and the positive, we're keeping hidden, keeping secret. And really what we're doing is living dishonestly. We're hiding from ourselves and we're hiding from other people. Verse 16 says, while you continue to live dishonestly, your notion of what your identity truly is cannot improve. That is pretty challenging, isn't it? Because we have to face the truth about what's going on with us. And we have to be willing to share that in order to really understand who or what it is we are. You need to relearn who you are. You need to relearn who you are by being who you are. And you can be who you are by sharing who you are. So then the question arises, what does that mean? I need to find a counselor and tell them all of my ugly thoughts? I've been down that route and it didn't get me anywhere. What this is actually saying is that we're asking for complete honesty of what your experience is in this moment. This isn't about going down memory lane and rehashing everything that's ever happened to you. This is about whatever your thought is in this moment, whatever your experience is in this moment. Being honest with yourself and honest with the people that you're interacting with about what you're experiencing. This calls for absolute honesty, free of deception, telling the truth to yourself and others. Only through facing and telling the truth will you find your true identity. And that's challenging because most of us are so accustomed to living life dishonestly. We have been hiding from ourselves and hiding from each other for so long. It's become a habitual place for us. And what this is asking is to come out of that place and to really be open and honest about what you are experiencing. Everything that has ever happened in your life has happened as a learning device to help you remember who you are. I'm going to stop here for just a minute. Believe me when I say that everything that has happened you have agreed to, or it wouldn't have happened. It couldn't have happened. And everything that presents itself is there because it's your perfect path to self-discovery. So recognize that. Whatever has happened to you has not happened because you're a bad person or because you're unlucky or because you're not loved as much. It's happened because it's the experience you chose in order to find yourself. And continuing on with that verse, those things about which you feel guilt and shame are simply the remnants of lessons unlearned. While you hang on to them by keeping them hidden, no learning occurs. So if you created a situation for yourself in order to show yourself, in order to have the experience of where your conditioning was still there, where you were still hanging on to fear, and you weren't able to allow that lesson to pass through you, now you feel guilt and shame about it. And it's just a lesson you haven't learned yet. That's all it is. So by hanging on to them and keeping them hidden, it remains something that creates that feeling of shame and guilt in you. It's gotta, if it's in your current experience, it's gotta come up. It's gotta be shared. Verse 22, sharing is thus not about who you think you are, but about who you truly are. And yet it is the way to learn the difference while learning is still necessary. Okay, so what does this look like? Well, as I am sitting here, I'm going to tell the truth about my experience right now and use that as an example. As I am sitting here recording this narration for you, I am experiencing a deep desire to communicate this concept of not being afraid to tell the truth. And my mind is going, trying to find examples. And my heart is reaching out because I have experienced that shame and guilt myself. I have worked with others who have been overwhelmed by that experience of shame and guilt, and I see what a trap it is, and how powerless it actually is when you bring it into the light. So I'm just sharing, that's my experience right now, my eagerness and my openness to show you the truth of this. So I use that as an example of just tell the truth to yourself about what you are experiencing in every moment. And as you interact with others, tell them the truth of what you are experiencing in every moment. As you learn who you are, deception has no purpose. What point would there be in saying anything that isn't true? There's no point in it. Ego thoughts can't share truth. So, since ego thoughts can't share truth because they're all fabricated, it bypasses the ego and you start discovering who you actually are and what your experience is. Verse 26 tells us, your past has nothing to do with the truth about who you are, except in the degree to which it has or has not helped you to remember who you are. That's all the past is worth, is in the lesson you learned from it. What you have learned in truth resides in your mind as a part of you. What you have not yet learned from awaits your learning. So as we're on this path of self-discovery, stuff comes up. Our conditioning comes up. Lessons that we need come before our face, and they're not always comfortable. They're often uncomfortable, as a matter of fact. And so what this teaching is telling us is just tell the truth about them, face them, recognize what the feelings are, recognize what's coming up for you, allow them to be as they are and tell the truth. And then that gives them the freedom to pass through, and you learn the lesson and you can move on. The ego sprang from the lie of separation. That lie created the illusion of separate minds. It began our habit of avoiding truth. We must now be devoted to truth. This is one of the things that I so adore about this teaching, is because it's not about establishing a belief system that you try to apply to your life so you have something to cling to when times get rough or when you need an answer. That is so not what this is. This is the pursuit of what's true, and the recognition that what is true does not need to be hidden from. I think the reason why we've hidden from the truth in the past is because we think the truth isn't right, it isn't good. Oh no, what am I going to do? If that's the truth, I can't go on. This is saying, no, the truth, the real truth is the way out. The real truth is the key. So we need to be devoted to truth as we do this process. And now we move into the relationship of other and self, which is also a big challenge. We look to each other to learn the truth about ourselves. We look to each other to complete ourselves in many ways and in a variety of roles. And of course, we all know that's true. We compare with each other all the time. We say, was that wrong of me? Weren't they wrong to do that? We always look to each other for affirmation of what we've done, what we've said, how we interact. Verse 29 tells us, if you are constantly reflecting back what you think your brothers and sisters want to see, they can learn nothing from you. So if I'm your friend and you tell me something that happened to you and I think you want this kind of support from me, and so I provide you with the kind of support that I think you want, it's fake. It's not what I'm actually experiencing and what I'm feeling, and it will not help you. It might be what the ego wants to hear, but there's no help involved. So what he's talking about here is it's so important for us to be genuine, authentic, and truthful in every interaction we have with each other, to just relax all those ideas of who we think we're supposed to be and what roles we're supposed to play with each other, and just relax into the truth of what's actually happening now between us. Looking for wholeness in relationship is the right idea, but not in the way we perceive it. It lies in finding the truth. In the sanity of the truth, you return to yourself. So if you come to me and say, this person said this to me and I felt like that was disrespectful and I stood my ground and it was important for me to protect myself, and I respond to you like, you're right, you should do that, even though that might not be what I'm feeling, I'm giving you nothing that's helpful. But if you come and you say that to me and I check into myself and I see what I'm actually experiencing as I watch you and hear you, and I'm totally present with you, and I say, I'm feeling a lot of fear coming up from you around this. I'm telling the truth, and that might be helpful to you. And the of course, amazing part is, through being present with you and being honest with you, I see you and I see myself, and the whole cycle gets complete. Verse 34, this aspect of giving and receiving as one is called relationship. It allows you to experience who you are, and thus to know or remember who you are. It is in the recognition of the truth about your brother and sister that you recognize the truth about yourself. It is only in relationship that this occurs, because only in relationship are you experiencing anything. Otherwise, you're just plugged into the program. There's no actual live experience going on. So, by being truthful, genuine, authentic, present, I see you and I see me. And that's where the magic happens. Verse 35. Your experience here is but an extension of mind into a realm in which experience can occur. This is what we created all of this for, so we could actually have experience. Your ego has turned this experience into its own projection, but that can change. In our relationships, we want to get to know each other, but since our world is so uncertain, we have expectations in our relationships. We want reliability from each other. But what happens is that we become locked into a sameness, expecting and offering predictable behavior, and the truth gets lost. Boy, is this not accurate? Think of your relationships. Think of your partnered relationships, first of all. You know, you want to get to know the other person. You truly love them on some level, and they want to get to know you. But because the ego's afraid, we're coming from a place of fear. Now we want to have some kind of stability going on in our lives. So I expect you to respond this way when I come to you with this, and you have expectations of me. And we try our best to meet the other's expectations because we want to be supportive, we want to be available, but it backfires because we get locked into that predictable behavior thing, and nobody's looking for what's true anymore. We're just trying to give each other what we think the other one wants or needs or expects. And so the truth is like lost in the process, and no wonder our relationships don't thrive. Because nobody's looking for truth there. And this is really the ticket to how to have ongoing, healthy, strong relationships that help us truly discover each other and ourselves, is by making a firm commitment to the truth at all times. Now, we have two exceptions in our relationships, that we have the roles we play with people in the world. And in these relationships, we actually expect change and growth. And that's from the teacher and the student, and the parent and the child. In both of these circumstances, at least one and usually both, of the people involved come forward with an open mind, with an I don't know mind. In the teacher-student relationship, the teacher might have the curriculum and the student doesn't know what's being taught, but the teacher doesn't know how the student's going to receive. The teacher doesn't know how it's going to progress. The teacher doesn't have a preconceived idea of what the interaction is going to be. And the student completely comes with a don't know mind. And because of that, something real can happen. Growth and learning can happen. And the same with the parent and the child. The child looks to the parent for direction and guidance. The child has an open heart and an open mind and is looking for direction. And the parent is deeply involved on a loving level with the child, watching the child to see what the child needs. So here are two exceptions in the roles we play where we do allow that. And we are now being asked to broaden all of our relationships to allow for change and growth, so we can see others and ourselves clearly. So this is really what this chapter leaves us with, this end idea of doing, setting aside our preconceived ideas of what our relationship should look like and how the other person should respond, letting our expectations drop, and really making a commitment to see what's true in our present moment interaction and tell that truth in the present moment interaction. And although it may sound just like good relationship advice, this is a really potent way for us to remember who we are and to wake up to the love that's between us and everything else. So I hope that that chapter has been helpful, and we are nearing the end of the first book of A Course of Love, and I will catch you in the review for the last and final chapter. Thank you for listening.